Okay, good afternoon, everybody, morning or evening, depending on where you are in the world. It's great to know that we've got as many people showing up today as we have. There's a lot of parties and a lot of people who are very interested in why fashion is going 3D, why it's going 3D as fast as it is, and how, from a brand perspective, from a retail perspective, from a manufacturer perspective, how you can keep pace and how you can turn 3D to your advantage and enable you to compete. We've got a pretty packed agenda today. We've got less than an hour, I think, to go through quite a lot of content. So I'm not going to belabor a huge introduction to myself. Anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Ben. I'm the editor of The Interline. We're a full spectrum technology publication for the fashion industry. We've got a big focus at the moment on digital product creation. So that's an umbrella term under which it sits a lot of what you will be familiar with: core 3D design and simulation, material digitization, everything that goes into the creation and use of digital assets. So it's a topic that we've been into for a long time. It's a topic I've personally covered for more than a decade, but it's a topic that has hit a tipping point in the fashion industry very recently. And I'm going to spend less than 10 minutes now, which is a tall order. I'm going to spend less than 10 minutes explaining why that is, explaining why fashion is suddenly going 3D, what the driving forces are behind that, before I hand over to our hosts, Style3D, who are going to try and showcase some of the ways that 3D can help people to cope. So I will very shortly, when I get towards the end of my presentation, I'll introduce the team from Style3D. We have Alexandra Vasilaki, who's going to be doing a live demonstration. We have Danny Reinfeld, who is the managing director of Style3D in Europe. So they're going to be joining me, and they're going to be picking up where I leave off. Now, there's a short answer and there's a long answer for why the fashion industry seems to have reached this tipping point that we're talking about with 3D. And I'll start with the short and the simple one, which is disruption. Now is not a great time to be in the business of making things or in the business of selling things. And there are a lot of brands who are coming out of the pandemic, coming out of, and now mired in a lot of global upheaval, a lot of consumer changes. There are a lot of organizations who are staring down the threat of degrowth. And that's a big deal for an industry that is built very much on and predicated very much on the idea of growth and of newness, new styles, new collections, new markets, new opportunities, new categories, all these kinds of things. And that is, in a nutshell, that's something that working digitally, so working in 3D, designing in 3D, making use of 3D assets throughout your value chain, that's something that 3D can help to head off. That's a way that brands can start to transform their processes, transform the way they go to market, transform the way they create, the way they source, to get ahead of some of these challenges and to cope in a very complex climate. Now, the longer version of all of that, the more complex one, is that there are a lot of contributory factors to why so many fashion brands are adopting 3D. So many retailers are making use of 3D. And I think irrespective of where you fall on the 3D maturity curve, whether you're a brand that is, you've come some distance down there, you design and prototype styles in 3D, and you're now figuring out how to take that into your supply chain, or you're now trying to figure out how to take that downstream for e-commerce and consumer engagement, or whether you're a company that's not really dipped a toe in the 3D water so far. You work digitally insofar as you design a lot of patterns and you design a lot of styles in Illustrator and pattern making tools, but you haven't yet gone down the 3D design and simulation route. No matter what role you fit into, you will have probably noticed that there is a huge amount of attention around digital product creation and around 3D. There's a lot of drive towards doing things digital native and doing things this way. The simple version we've just had, the more complex version, is broken down into a lot of areas where digital product creation in 3D can have a pronounced positive impact. These are negative forces, but there are areas where 3D can have a big effect. It's more expensive than ever right now to make things. As a brand or a retailer, your import costs are at an all-time high across raw materials, logistics, distribution, sourcing, factory capacity. All of the things that go into making a product are higher than they have been, or more unpredictable than they have been for a long time. There's a huge amount of continued supply chain risk. Now, the pandemic was obviously the most acute face of this, but everybody is now staring down the possibility that factory capacity, raw materials sourcing, logistics, distribution, consumers, a lot of things upstream can change unexpectedly. There's a lot of risk exposure. There's a lot of organizations that have identified a need to diversify, to strengthen, to figure out ways to ensure continuity of product and continuity of service. There's a huge amount of risk that still threatens that. There's a lot that's changing in what consumers expect from the brands that they engage with, right? And there is a cost of living crisis. I mean, I'm in the UK, you can probably tell from the accent. Just today, there's been an announcement of tax rises, spending cuts, lack of support with bills, all these kinds of things. All of that is changing what consumers are able to buy, and it's changing what people actually want from the brands that they engage with, which makes the consumer base, irrespective of what segment of it you're targeting, it makes it into a moving target. It's very, very difficult to know what people want, when they want it, and to have any kind of predictability into whether that's still going to be what people want when you actually get around to bringing your product to market. Most brands and retailers also have what I would characterize as arm's length sourcing and production relationships. They're not close, collaborative, co-creative relationships between brands and suppliers. They're more handled on the basis of flat 2D PDF technical specifications that get sent from a brand to a manufacturer to interpret and create. Samples, iterative samples get sent back, production samples, prototypes. That whole cycle is kept at one remove. When there's a big mandate because of the complexity of the climate at the moment, those things to come closer together, for those actors to work more closely together. And sustainability enforcement is something that is no longer looming or no longer potential. It's something that is very certainly coming. Right now, the fashion industry has been largely left to self-regulate when it comes to waste, when it comes to wages, when it comes to pollution. A lot of those things are going to be legislated in the very near future. And with working in traditional analog ways, not a lot of organizations have a ready answer for what that means and how to respond to it. And one of the major things, really, and this is an organizational factor, and it's current across almost every business model, is that the decision-making processes that contribute to any given product's lifecycle are very complicated and very multifaceted. There are a lot of choices that have to be made to bring a product to market, and there are a lot of variables that go into the consumer's choice as to whether to actually go ahead and purchase that product. We're talking in-house choices like line review processes, merchandise planning, costing, sourcing, fit, all these kinds of decisions that need to be taken for a brand or retailer to bring the best possible product to market. And then you're talking about the various variables around cost, value, sustainability, quality, fit, all these are the kind of things that a consumer needs to make a choice on in order for a product to make its way from the beginning of its life cycle to the end of its life cycle, and to sell through at the right price for everybody, at the right margin for the retailer, in a way that the consumer does not want to return it. These are all problems that the fashion industry faces right now. And those, combined with the availability of 3D and the kind of the democratization, the accessibility, and the intuitive nature of 3D solutions, digital product creation solutions, is what's having a big accelerative effect on the fashion industry's embrace of digital native working. So if you're a brand, for example, right now, you want to you probably want to create more variants than ever. You probably want to create more colorways, more different style options. You want to experiment more. That's a big use case for doing things digitally and having digital assets to make decisions from. You probably also want to communicate with your suppliers in the same way. Again, a big use case for digital assets. You want to start to replace traditional product photography with virtual photography staged with digital assets, so that you are not waiting on finished product to make its way through for photo shoots to take place. Everywhere you look, up and downstream, there is a use case that you can viably point to from a brand perspective, and you can say, it would be very valuable for me if I could have a digital asset in place of a physical asset there. Those are everywhere, and they are having very much of an accelerative effect on the way that the industry thinks about creating those digital assets. There is a greater need for digital assets than ever. And most organizations do not have the capability and the capacity to create those as of yet, which is a reason that a lot of them are turning to 3D. There's a very strong business case taking account of everything we've just mentioned around high input costs, around changing consumer bases, around disruption in supply chains. There's a very strong business case for optimizing every decision process, every stage of the product life cycle in the physical production. So you're producing physical good at the end of it. There are a lot of business cases and use cases to say, I want to make use of digital assets and digital choices that allow me to optimize that physical production. There's also the huge accelerative effect around brands wanting to have digital products, right? Digital for digital pipelines, where you're creating digital goods, whether they are exact counterparts or replicas of physical products, or whether they're completely unmoored from reality. And you're asking yourself, can I sell these directly? Is there something that I can monetize? Is there a market there for digital fashion? If not, can I at the very least start to use these to engage consumers in a new way? They may not be buying the digital asset. They may be interacting with the digital asset as a precursor to then going on to engage with my organization physically. There's also the huge shift away from centralized working to remote collaboration and international production. Most garments are not made in the same country that they're sold in. Most garments are not designed necessarily in the same place that they have their technical development done in. They're not designed in the same place that the raw materials are sourcing from. There's a huge disconnect between where things take place. And that's a disconnect that can only really be addressed by bringing things into all the physical choices you would make, bringing those into digital. And there's a new generation of creative professionals as well, who are now coming out of universities, they're coming out of grassroots education, they're coming out of being self-taught. And these are the next generation of talent that is going to fuel the future of the kind of brands who are attending this webinar today. And they have the expectation that they're going to be able to experiment untethered from physical reality. They have the expectation that they're going to be able to play around with something in 3D. They're going to be able to adjust a hem. They're going to be able to adjust a pattern on a 3D garment. They're going to be able to adjust the placement of a piece of artwork without having to request another physical sample, without having to get something back and then review it and repeat that cycle. And if you're running a brand, then there's an expectation set for you to provide that ecosystem, to start to say, well, how do I ensure that this next generation of creative professionals, they have the tools they need, they have the support they need, they have everything they need in order to deliver on my brand. So very quickly, because we don't have time to go through all of it, I'm afraid, but what can digital product creation, what can 3D do in the near future to address some of these challenges that I just talked about? If you properly select 3D, you properly implement 3D, you properly look at it as an opportunity to get value from digital assets in design, in technical development, in sourcing, in e-commerce, right the way throughout the value chain, working in 3D can cut costs. It can get around that issue of high input costs. You can find ways to bring creative products to market, to bring innovation to market without the unnecessary cost burden. You can reduce supply chain risk by working more collaboratively, engaging in a new way, and full accountability and communication with your supply chain partners. If your creative experimentation and agility to meet a changing market, what consumers want is shifting, what the world wants is changing day in and day out. Hitting that moving target requires you to be nimble. It requires you to be able to say, I want to visualize this idea, or I want to trial this, I want to try this. And that's something that can very easily be done. You start to work in 3D. One of the most potent values of working in 3D is bringing new ideas to life and doing it without the overheads of physical. It can bring brands and their supply chains closer together. You can support more radical approaches to sustainability. If you know exactly what goes into your products and you start to figure out material usage and material yields and waste, start to figure out potential operation values, virtual costing, all these kinds of things you can simulate in 3D that would allow you to say, before I've even sewn a stitch, before I've even sourced a piece of material, I have a good idea of what the sustainability profile of this garment or of this product will be. And most importantly, if you adopt 3D in the right way, with the right partner, it allows you to deliver digital assets at scale to make those choices. Everywhere that you would have made a choice based on a physical prototype, a physical sample, a physical asset, done right, you can make that choice and your consumers can make that choice based on a digital asset. It's delivering those digital garments, digital footwear, digital accessories, those things at a meaningful scale that allows the industry to transition from traditional analog ways of working to digital ways of working. In the process of doing that, you're going to be looking at solutions. You're going to be looking at identifying vendors. And our hosts, Style3D, they've invited me to give you this grounding that I've just set out, crammed a lot into less than 10 minutes, but hopefully it's food for thought. Now, you might or might not have heard of Style3D, but they're a significant player in the 3D space. And I know that they're working on trying to deliver. They're working on trying to address each of the challenges and the opportunities that the people in the audience will be facing. Hopefully, they recognize some of them in the presentation I've just given. But you're going to hear from people today who are actively working to address those issues. They're actively working to try and provide solutions to those opportunities. So without further ado from me, I'll give you a quick idea of what else we have coming up within the scope of this next 45 minutes or so. I'm going to hand over in a minute to Danny Reinfeld. He's the managing director of Style3D in Europe, and he's going to give you a broad introduction to Style3D. There's then a very quick case study video for a Style3D customer called Leverstyle. After which we'll hand over to Alexandra Vasilaki. She is Senior Technical Consultant for Style3D, and she's going to be leading a deep dive demonstration on some key functionality. I think towards the end as well, Danny, if I'm right, we'll have some time for Q&A as long as I haven't run over and nothing else runs over. So you got any questions from my presentation? You got any questions from Danny's through the demonstration? There'll be an opportunity to raise those afterwards. But for now, I hope you've obtained some value from this intro, and Danny, I'll hand over to you.
Great. Ben, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to see you virtually or in real life.
In person, increasingly these days, yeah.
Yeah. I was, for a while, I was thinking that you were just an avatar, but
no, I do have legs.
Yeah. Okay, let me go into full screen over here. We can see my screen okay? I'll take that as a yes. Great. So thank you for that enlightening talk, Ben, and thank you to everybody who joined her today. It is really nice to meet you, as virtual as this meeting might be. But as Ben said, all the time we get questions about, wait, are you that company that put out that great looking content I saw on LinkedIn? Are you that company that my supplier keeps telling me all about? And yeah, that's us. And so it's a great opportunity for us to tell you ourselves a little about us and do our best in this short time to introduce you to what we know how to do. And let me tell you, this is just the tip of the iceberg, what we can show you today. I can't possibly do justice in the next 7 minutes to telling you about what we know how to do, or Alex demonstrating what we know how to do. So this is just a taste. What are the solutions that wound up to address those issues? And so here we are with a bird's eye view of our solution, which starts with the fabric, and we have a complete solution here to digitize fabric, everything from the hardware to scan the textures in high res to their measuring their typical construction of a piece of fabric, and then our simulation engine, which drapes it, displays it as it would normally drape and look in real life. And these solutions, this feeds into our studio program software, which is used to create 3D content. And from there, it moves into our cloud, which is by far the largest database of digital assets available today. It includes, I can show you what it includes. We provide a vast library. When I say vast, I mean close to 50,000, 50K assets at your disposal, ready to be used in terms of trims, fabrics, avatars. Last count, we had about 600 avatars in various poses available for users, animations, accessories, digital showrooms, digital blocks, and all of this is available to our customers and subscribers to use royalty-free and to download with patterns and customize and use it as needed. That ties into our what we call our Style 3D meta. And what you'll find over there are the tools that you need to connect to the outside world, because that's what needs to happen. You can create, but then you need to share. And where are you going to share? Into PLM systems, into ERP systems, the large e-commerce platforms, perhaps Shopify or Alibaba. And we've created all of those hooks and links so that these systems can talk to each other. We also have in this part of our portfolio our plugins for working with Unreal, the Unreal Engine, so you can use their platform for 3D animation, etc., as well as their MetaHumans to make really lifelike content. And of course, all of this ties in with the other tools that you need to sell, such as digital showrooms, VR showrooms, etc. So just a quick timeline. As I said, we're born in 2015, and we have been moving and growing rapidly. From our inception, we released our first, the first, MVP, the first prototypes of our software to the market in 2017. And by 2019, we had tripled in size, in terms of company size and in terms of revenue. And we fortunately released our digital, our cloud-based market platform that I just told you about, just as COVID launched. And by the end of that year, we successfully onboarded over 180 different companies to use the platform and collaborate and share and sell all online. Company continues to grow, and this year we're celebrating the digitization of hundreds, and I mean hundreds of mills that we have digitized using our services and the software that I told you about, so that they have digital fabrics that they can share online and can be draped and viewed in all the different colors any place in the world. We've launched the 5th version now of our studio software, as well as releasing native Mac support. We just released Adobe Substance support. So we are constantly growing, we are constantly expanding and adding more tools to our arsenal so that you can add them to yours. And I promise you, 2023 is going to be even more exciting than this. So what differentiates us from the others is first and foremost is our simulation engine. We have created our own intellectual property, working with our team of researchers. Now we separate research from development. So we have a dedicated team of over 20 people, half of whom are PhDs in fabric simulation and graphics. They have created what is undoubtedly the best simulation engine for fabric in the market today. And the ties into the robust solutions that we have, which will digitize as far upstream as you can go. When I first started talking digital transformation in fashion apparel about 9 years ago, we said, where do you get fabrics from? Where do you get fabrics? Oh, you can scan in-house. But now through Style 3D, there are, as I said, hundreds of fabric mills who have digitized their products and can share them using our technology, regardless if you're using Clo, Browseware, Style 3D, or any of the other suppliers. I like to call us our dream team. We are the global dream team. And why do we call ourselves that? Because we're made up. And by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, we're about 500 people in the company today. And these people are made up of technologists, as well as people who have spent their lives in fashion and apparel, be it manufacturing, design, working for some of the largest companies in the world. The head of our customer success team created the digital, I don't know exactly what it was called, but Lian Feng's digital content creation team, and he ran it as a vice president for over 5 years, and worked very closely with companies in the States. And he has a beautiful eye. And And I do want to stress here the commercialization of our company, our financial strength, and the scale at which we go. Now, I showed you earlier our portfolio, and we have over 19,000 users using our studio software. We have over 8,000 different users on our cloud platform. And we have in our digital asset management, which is part of the platform that I mentioned earlier, we're currently managing or our customers are managing using our platform over 2 million different assets. This is a mission critical system that has data centers around the world. Our data stays where it was created, and so all of that is safe, and it is already, and it's been ready for prime time for a while. Now, we are a profitable company. We are growing rapidly and very, very secure financially. Around the world, offices, partners, what doesn't appear here are our partners in India, Greece. We have Portugal, we have in Vietnam, Korea, Bangladesh, and Taiwan, to name a few. Just recently, we've opened research and development centers in the US. We have a partnership with Stanford University to further develop our core technologies using the pool of talent they have they're available, and as well as in Houston, and in 2023, I promise you'll hear more about this. So we work with some of the largest companies in the world, and we like to say that we're trusted by them, and we're trusted by the same companies that you guys trust to create your product. They trust us to use our tools to create for you. So we work with e-commerce companies, fast fashion, luxury, and many others. And this is just a partial list. Hopefully you see some of your suppliers here. If not, they're probably on the extended list. So now I want to get into the use case and introduce you to a company called Leverstyle. And if you come from one of their customers over here, you know them well. They're based in Hong Kong, and this is their website, right? This is just the screenshots from there. This is how they stand out in the market and how they present their advantages. And they produce designs and clothing for, as you can see here, a wide variety of products, price points, fabrics, and standards. And they need tools that will support that and work for all of these in terms of speed, accuracy, looks, etc. And I'm going to introduce you now to their CEO, Mr. Eddie Chan, who will tell you about what it is that they do.
Leverstyle is a company with a 66-year history. We start from a manufacturer, and currently we are basically a kind of a vertical supply chain solution provider. In any industry, the back end and front end is very important. Our future direction is to integrate back end with our supplier. So this kinds of 3D products is not just only created by us. So whatever you produce your 3D product, you need a place to do the exchange. Actually, it stands for Style 3D. As long as you can go to the platform, you can easily view, you can easily collaborate. That is the solution.
So that's why we are not using tools. We're not buying tools to generate some very traditional stuff. We are kind of need a platform to rebuild the whole process, whole kind of business value chain to this industry. Before we met Style 3D, we already start our digitalized transformation space. Like we engage the PRM, and then we find out the value chain of this kind of knowledge library being digitalized. There is only assets internally. So we also would like to get some cooperation with our customers. 3D is one of the breakthrough ways. In general, digital transformation is our company's 3-year strategy. And 3D is one of really big part of the value added. So we have more and more invest on the 3D investment.
Star3D provides us with a great platform to host and display a wide variety of our online resources. We are offering 3D sampling as one of our services to our clients for a very long time now. We've recently developed a brand new athleisure showroom with a fully fledged collection.
The 3D technology is changing this process completely. So there is a possibility you start the selling and buying even before making, even before the product is ready. So I think that is the fundamental change. I think it takes time, but the integration will be the future direction.
Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate that. Now, I invite you all to go look at their website. They have a lot of content up there about how they work digitally, and it's fascinating and it's impressive. Okay, everything's okay? We can see me?
Yes.
See the screen? Great.
We
Okay,
can.
great. So to sum things up, FYI, we would love to meet you in real life. We will be at the ISPO fair in Munich the end of the month. And we're going to have a large booth, and we're going to have a lot of demonstrations there, including the fabric hardware. We have more webinars coming up about how to build that successful 3D strategy that Ben mentioned earlier. If you do it right, you will have a beautiful digital future with great returns on your investment. And we're going to share some of the building blocks there with you more in depth on how you can achieve that. So in closing, we have just shared with you the foundations, the digital foundations that need to be in place so that you can move through from the initial prototyping through to the marketing, collaboration, and ultimately selling to your customers. And it doesn't end there. It just continues. And we'll find customers or organizations that have been on this digital path, and they're moving further into it. They were the early adopters in adopting the initial 3D processes and workflows earlier on. They're now the trailblazers for other aspects of the digital world, combining the bringing on NFTs and artificial intelligence. These are the areas that we are focusing on, bringing these tools so that you can grow from the foundation through to additional applications of selling more and selling better, and combining the physical world and the digital world. The term we heard recently was phygital. And I don't know how I feel about that term, but Ben, I saw your expression over there. You said, what? But that
It's a hard one to it's a hard one to pronounce.
Yeah.
No, I think there's, and again, we're over time, so I won't go too deep into it. But there's a strong argument for being able to seamlessly move between physical and digital processes, physical and digital products, and like I mentioned before, you have digital for physical workflows where you're using digital tools, you're using 3D to streamline and optimize the way that you produce physical goods. You're using digital for digital, where your end product is either a digital good you're trying to sell, or you're trying to promote a product using digital engagement, real time, or what have you. There's a lot of cross-pollination, a lot of crossover between the tools and the expertise and the skill sets and everything to deliver on all of that. So I don't use the word phygital myself a lot. It's probably going to be in our digital product creation report a few times because there's a lot of different perspectives in there, including Star3D's. But there's definitely a strong argument for being able to transcend that boundary that's traditionally existed between digital processes and physical outputs.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I'm going to just conclude with another video. This is prepared by Anta, the large sporting company. all the animation of the avatars that you saw there, and of course, the clothing was all done using Style 3D. And the background animations were used other platforms. I don't know which ones, but we integrate with those as well. So everybody, thank you again for taking the time to get to know us. As much as we could share with you in this short time, we will respond to the questions directly via email, and we invite you to get to learn more about us and share with us some of your challenges in digital, and we'd be happy to have those conversations with you offline. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Danny. That's much appreciated.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure, Ben. Thank you, everybody.
Have this.
And have a
Take care,
great day.
everyone.